Isaiah, can you come get me? He locked the door.
By morning, the security guard would tell anyone who asked that the black maintenance man had driven away with Claire Kensington like he had no right to be near her at all. Isaiah Brooks did not know that yet. He only knew his 8-year-old son was asleep under a blue rocket blanket. His job badge was hanging beside the door, and a woman who had never really looked at him before was whispering through his phone like the walls around her had started closing in. Isaiah. Her voice was thin, polished beneath the fear, familiar enough to make him stand still in the middle of the kitchen. This is Claire Kensington. Rain ticked against the window behind him. The apartment smelled like cold black coffee, instant noodles, and the glue Eli had used on a science project. Isaiah looked toward the couch where his son slept with one sock halfway off, a marker still caught between his fingers, cardboard rocket fins drying crooked on the coffee table. Claire Kensington was not part of this world. She was the CEO of Kensington Lane Hotels, white, elegant, sharp as winter light, the kind of woman who crossed the lobby of his office tower and made men in tailored suits step aside before she had to ask. Isaiah had fixed the conference room thermostat for her once while she stood behind him in a cream coat, checking messages, thanking him without ever learning how tired his hands were. Now she breathed into his ear like she was trying not to be heard. "Can you come get me?" Isaiah's voice stayed low. "Are you hurt?" A pause. Something scraped faintly on her end of the line. A key card. A lock. Maybe a hand against the door. "No, I do not think so." Then softer, almost ashamed. He locked the door. Isaiah did not ask who. Not yet. Some questions were for safety. Some were for curiosity. He had learned the difference raising Eli alone. Learned it in hospital waiting rooms, school offices, late rent calls, and long shifts where people spoke around him like he was furniture with a toolbox. He took his keys from the hook. The old blue rocket blanket shifted on the couch as Eli stirred. "Daddy." Isaiah crouched beside him and brushed a hand over his curls. "I have to help somebody, champ." Eli blinked through sleep. "Somebody scared?" Isaiah held his son's gaze. He never lied to Eli when the truth could be carried gently. "Yeah." Eli looked toward the window, then toward the umbrella leaning by the door. "Take the big one." That was Eli. Small body. Serious heart. Isaiah swallowed the ache in his throat and knocked once on Mrs. Alvarez's door next to theirs. He explained only what he had to. A scared woman. A quick drive. Ili uslit. Mrs. Alvarez looked at him over her glasses, then at the rain, then at the badge clipped to his jacket. "Isaiah, trouble follows kindness when people do not understand it." He nodded. "Then I will have to walk careful." 10 minutes later, his old black SUV rolled north through Chicago, windshield wipers dragging water across the glass in tired strokes. The city changed around him block by block. Corner stores gave way to glass towers. Laundromats gave way to valet lights. By the time Kensington Tower rose above the street, it looked less like a building than a blade of polished money cutting into the dark. Isaiah pulled up near the private entrance, where marble steps shone under security lamps. A guard in a black coat stepped forward before Isaiah had fully opened his door. His eyes moved over the worn maintenance jacket, the old SUV, the cracked booster seat visible in back beside Eli's half-finished rocket drawing. "Deliveries go around back." Isaiah did not raise his voice. "I am here for Miss Kensington." The guard almost smiled. Not kindly. Then the glass doors opened behind him. Claire stood inside barefoot, heels in one hand, a red dress hidden beneath a black coat that did not seem warm enough. Her hair, usually perfect, was pinned badly at one side. Her face was pale, controlled, beautiful in a way that looked exhausted. She saw Isaiah and stopped fighting her expression for 1 second. Not relief exactly. Recognition. He walked past the guard without looking for permission. "You ready?" Claire nodded, but her eyes flicked back toward the elevator. Isaiah saw the trembling hand, the bent key card, the faint red mark where a bracelet had been pulled too tight. He said nothing. He only opened the passenger door and waited far enough away for her to choose the step herself. Claire looked into the SUV and saw the child booster, the rocket drawing, the folded blue blanket still carrying the shape of his son's sleep. Isaiah's voice stayed quiet. "There's still room at my place." Her lips parted, but no words came. And just before she climbed in, the lobby camera turned toward them, catching the old SUV, the powerful woman with no shoes, and the black single father everyone was about to misunderstand. By the time Isaiah Brooks turned his old SUV away from Kensington Tower, the guard at the private entrance had already made the call. Not to check whether Claire was safe. Not to ask why the CEO of Kensington Lane Hotels had come downstairs barefoot in the rain. He called building operations and said a maintenance employee had left with Miss Kensington after midnight in a personal vehicle, like the sentence itself was proof of something wrong. Isaiah did not know the exact words yet, but he felt the shape of them following him through the dark. Claire sat beside him with her black coat pulled tight, one hand wrapped around the bent keycard in her lap, the other pressed against the door handle as if part of her still expected someone to pull it shut from the outside. The heater hummed low. Rain slid over the windshield. Eli's blue rocket blanket lay folded on the back seat beside the booster, still warm from his sleep, and the half-finished rocket drawing trembled each time the SUV hit a crack in the road. Claire looked at those small things in quick pieces. The blanket, the child's seat, the worn jacket sleeve near Isaiah's wrist. She had expected desperation from men like him, because that was what her world had taught her to expect from people with less. Instead, he drove with both hands steady, eyes on the road, asking for nothing. That made her more guarded, not less. "You are taking a risk," she said finally. Isaiah glanced at her once. "So are you." The answer was calm enough to make her look away. 2 blocks later, his phone buzzed through the dashboard speakers. The name on the screen made his jaw tighten almost invisibly. "Mr. Harlan, building operations." Isaiah let it ring once, then answered. "Brooks." Harlan's voice came through sharp and thin. "Tell me why security just sent me footage of you escorting Miss Kensington into your vehicle." Claire stiffened. Isaiah kept driving. She needed a ride. A ride. Harlan laughed once without humor. "Do you understand what this looks like?" Isaiah's eyes stayed forward. "Understand what she asked for." Silence hit the line. Claire turned toward him, startled by the restraint in his voice, by the way he refused to sound guilty just to make another man comfortable. Harlan lowered his tone. "You report before your shift Monday. Badge, keys, everything. Do not make this worse by talking." Isaiah's fingers tightened once around the wheel, then relaxed. "My son has school Monday morning. I will come after drop-off." Harlan scoffed. "This is not a negotiation." "No, sir," Isaiah said quietly. "It is a responsibility." He ended the call before anger could borrow his mouth. For a few seconds, only the wipers spoke. Claire watched his reflection in the rain-dark glass, waiting for complaint, blame, some small invoice of sacrifice. None came. If you have ever been judged before anyone asked for the truth, hold on to this story and subscribe, because Isaiah's quiet was about to cost him more than anyone in that tower understood. Claire looked down at the keycard in her palm. The back of it bore 3 faint scratched words she had not meant for anyone to see. "Do not leave." She closed her fingers over them. "You did not have to answer like that," she murmured. Isaiah's voice stayed low. "I have a boy at home who listens to how I let people speak to me." The sentence settled between them heavier than judgment. Claire had no clean answer for it. 10 minutes later, Isaiah pulled into the narrow lot beside his brick apartment building. The SUV rattled once before the engine died. Warm yellow light glowed from one second-floor window. "It is not much," he said. "No apology in it. Just truth." Upstairs, he unlocked the door quietly. The apartment smelled of tomato sauce, coffee, and old heat. Eli had tried to stay awake on the couch, but sleep had won, his small body curled beneath the space where the blue blanket should have been. When the door clicked shut, he stirred and lifted his head. His eyes found Isaiah first. Then Claire, standing frozen in the doorway like she had stepped into a life she had no language for. Eli rubbed one eye and whispered, "Daddy." "Is she the lady who sounded scared?" Claire stood frozen inside the doorway, while Eli's sleepy question hung in the warm apartment air. Isaiah closed the door behind them with the same care he used for everything small and breakable. then slipped the deadbolt into place. She just needed somewhere safe for a little while, he said. No drama. No explanation beyond what his son needed. Eli pushed himself up on one elbow, dark curls flattened on one side, his pajama shirt twisted at the collar. His eyes moved over Claire's bare feet, the black coat, the expensive dress beneath it, then the hands still clenched around the bent keycard. Children noticed what adults try to hide. Is she cold? He asked. Claire opened her mouth, but the answer caught somewhere behind her pride. She had commanded hotel openings, fired executives, faced investors who wanted blood, and still she could not find one polished sentence inside this small room with a child looking at her like fear was not embarrassing. Isaiah stepped toward the couch, but Eli was already tugging at the blue rocket blanket. She can use mine. Champ, Isaiah said gently. You need that. Eli shook his head, serious with sleep. You said guests get the soft one. Claire stared at the blanket as if it weighed more than fabric. Tiny white rockets were stitched across the faded blue cotton. One corner had been repaired with uneven thread, the kind of repair done by a father after bedtime, not by someone who had time to make it perfect. Isaiah hesitated, then took the blanket and offered it to her without stepping too close. You can sit if you want. Claire accepted it carefully. Thank you. Her voice sounded smaller than she intended. Eli watched her wrap it around her shoulders, then relaxed, as if a problem had been solved. Dad makes spaghetti when people have bad days, he mumbled, already sinking back into the couch. Isaiah gave him a look. You were supposed to be asleep. I was supervising. The faintest smile touched Claire's mouth, but she swallowed it quickly, like even that much softness felt dangerous. Isaiah moved into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. The apartment was modest, but nothing felt neglected. Elias thekbak hung onatid. A lunchbox sat drying beside the sink. A school notice about a science fair was pinned under a magnet shaped like a rocket. Next to it, half folded behind an overdue electric bill, Claire caught a glimpse of another paper, Kensington Operations Review, with Isaiah Brooks typed in the corner. She looked away before he saw her noticing. Isaiah warmed the spaghetti on the stove instead of the microwave, stirring quietly while his phone lit up again on the counter. Harlan. He let it buzz until it stopped. Claire saw the name. She saw the choice. Work could punish him. His son could wake frightened. His landlord could hear rumors by morning. And still he placed a chipped bowl in front of her, like feeding someone came before defending himself. You should answer, she said, guarded again, reaching for the language she understood. This could affect your job. Isaiah leaned against the counter, tired eyes steady. My job matters. He glanced toward Eli, asleep beneath nothing now but his own small arms. But people matter first. Claire looked down at the blue rocket blanket in her lap. For the first time since leaving the tower, she did not know whether that sentence comforted her or exposed her. Then Isaiah's phone buzzed once more, this time with a text preview from Building Operations. Report Monday with badge and keys. Suspension pending review. Isaiah looked at the suspension text for 1 second longer than he wanted Claire to see. Then he turned the phone face down on the counter and reached for Eli's lunchbox like the message had been a loose screw, something to handle later with the right tool and a clear head. Claire watched him from the small kitchen table, the blue rocket blanket still gathered around her shoulders. In her world, a suspended badge meant leverage, liability, a problem to be contained before spread. In Isaiah's world, it meant Monday morning could take food from his refrigerator. It meant a school field trip form might sit unsigned because the fee could not be spared. It meant his son might wake up to a father quietly paying for one act of kindness. I can call someone, Claire said. The words came out controlled, almost executive. Building Operations answers to my company. Isaiah rinsed the spoon before placing it beside the sink. Not tonight. Claire frowned. You are being suspended because of me. I am being suspended because a guard saw a story he wanted to believe. He said it without bitterness. That made it worse. Claire pulled the blanket tighter, suddenly aware of how small the chair felt beneath her, how strange it was to sit in a man's kitchen while his job shook because she had asked him for help. Then let me correct it. Isaiah glanced toward the living room where Eli had fallen fully asleep again, one hand tucked under his cheek. Correct it when you know what you are correcting. The sentence stopped her. Not sharp, not accusing, just a boundary. Claire looked down at the bent keycard in her palm. The words scratched across the back, pressed into her skin. Do not leave. She had carved them there earlier with the edge of a broken bracelet clasp, while Daniel's voice stayed calm on the other side of the penthouse door. She had not meant to bring that panic into this apartment. She had not meant for Isaiah to see any part of it. But men like Isaiah noticed quiet damage the way mechanics noticed a leak before the ceiling fell. His phone buzzed again. This time it was not Harlan. Unknown number. Isaiah did not answer right away. Claire did not need to see the screen to know. Her shoulders went rigid beneath Eli's blanket. Isaiah saw the change before the second ring finished. He picked up the phone, silenced it, and set it farther from her on the counter. You do not have to perform common here, he said. Claire stared at him. The sentence reached a place no executive memo had ever touched. Then, because fear hated being seen too clearly, her defenses returned. You do not know me well enough to say that. Isaiah nodded once. That is true. He opened a drawer, took out a folded dish towel, and wiped the counter where sauce had spilled near Eli's homework. But I know what it looks like when somebody is listening for footsteps. Silence spread through the kitchen. Claire looked away first. On the refrigerator, behind a magnet shaped like a rocket, the corner of the Kensington Operations Review showed again. Isaiah noticed her noticing this time and gently slid Eli's science fair notice over it, not hiding it with panic, just choosing privacy. That small movement made Claire more curious than any confession would have. You work maintenance, she said carefully, not quite a question. Isaiah picked up Eli's blue marker from the floor and capped it. Edo. And you wrote an operations review? He looked at her then, calm, tired, unimpressed by the importance she had just attached to a piece of paper. People who fix buildings usually know where they keep breaking. Claire had no answer. Somewhere outside, a car slowed beneath the apartment window, its headlights sliding across the ceiling like pale bars. Isaiah moved to check the curtain, not rushing, not afraid, just alert. Claire followed his gaze and saw a black sedan idling by the curb below. Her hand closed around the keycard, so hard the plastic bent again. Then Isaiah's phone lit once more with a text from the unknown number. Tell Claire I know where she is. Isaiah read the message once, then placed the phone screen down beside Eli's lunchbox. He did not curse, did not rush to the window like fear had the right to drag him by the collar. He only looked at Claire long enough to see the color drain from her face, then reached for the curtain and pulled it closed with 2 fingers. Stay away from the glass, he said quietly. Claire tightened the blue rocket blanket around her shoulders. That is Daniel's car. Isaiah nodded like she had confirmed what he already understood. Outside, the black sedan idled beneath the street lamp, windshield dark, engine breathing white into the rain. Inside, Eli shifted on the couch and mumbled in his sleep. That small sound changed everything. Isaiah moved toward him first, not the door, not the window, not the threat waiting below. He tucked the loose edge of the blanket Claire was not using around Eli's legs, brushed the marker from the boy's hand, and set the half-finished rocket drawing on the coffee table where it would not bend. Claire watched him do it. A man had just told him he knew where she was. His job was already hanging by a thread. His name could be twisted by morning. And still, his first instinct was to make sure his son did not wake up cold. The realization landed in her quietly, harder than comfort. You should not go down there, she said. Isaiah picked up his worn jacket from the chair. I'm not going down there for him. He reached for the trash bag by the kitchen door, tied it off, then grabbed Mrs. Alvarez's folded mail from the counter where she had left it earlier by mistake. Claire blinked. What are you doing? Taking out the trash. He slipped the mail under one arm and giving Mrs. Alvarez her envelopes. Now is when people are watching. The answer made no sense until he opened the door and stepped into the hallway with the calm of a man who had spent his life refusing to look guilty for ordinary things. Claire stayed behind the curtain, peering through the narrow gap despite herself. Isaiah walked down the stairs slowly, trash bag in one hand, mail in the other, shoulders relaxed beneath the old jacket. The black sedan's window lowered halfway as he crossed the small lot. Daniel Mercer's voice carried faintly through the rain, smooth enough to sound polite from a distance. "You are making a serious mistake." Isaiah did not stop near the car. He kept walking toward the dumpster. "No, sir," he said, his voice low but clear. "I'm taking out the trash." Daniel's face tightened behind the glass. At that moment, Mrs. Alvarez's downstairs door opened, and she stepped out too quickly, struggling with a grocery bag that had split at the bottom. Cans rolled across the wet pavement, one spinning beneath the sedan's front tire. Isaiah set his own bag down and crouched to gather them before she could bend. "I told you not to carry the heavy ones alone," he said. Mrs. Alvarez gave him a tired look. "And I told you I'm not 90 yet." He smiled faintly, handed her the mail, and lifted both grocery bags as if the expensive car and the man inside it did not exist. Daniel watched. Claire watched. The building across the alley watched through lit windows. Isaiah carried the groceries to Mrs. Alvarez's door, waited while she found her keys, then placed everything inside her kitchen without stepping past the threshold. "You short on milk again?" he asked softly. She waved him off. "I will manage." Isaiah pulled a folded $5 bill from his jacket pocket, the same pocket where Claire had seen an overdue bill earlier, and tucked it beneath the bread on top of her bag. "Eli will ask if you have cocoa tomorrow," he said. "Do not make me explain empty milk to that boy." Mrs. Alvarez saw the money and opened her mouth. Isaiah shook his head once. Not prideful, gentle, final. Claire stood motionless behind the curtain. She had seen men donate millions under chandeliers with cameras waiting. She had never seen anyone give away grocery money in the rain, while a threat sat watching from a luxury sedan. Daniel's window rose again, slow and dark. Isaiah walked back upstairs without looking at him. When he entered the apartment, his jacket was wet at the shoulders and his hands smelled faintly of rain and paper bags. Claire stared at him like one of the facts of her world had just broken. "Why would you do that?" she whispered. Isaiah hung his jacket by the door. "Because she needed help before he needed my fear." Claire had no defense for that. Then Eli stirred, opened one eye, and murmured from the couch, "Dad, did you give Mrs. Alvarez your milk money again?" Eli's question landed harder than any accusation Daniel Mercer could have made. Isaiah stood by the door with rain on his jacket and did not answer fast enough. That was answer enough. Eli pushed himself up on the couch, hair flattened on one side, eyes still heavy with sleep, but clear enough to understand small sacrifices. "Dad," he whispered, disappointed in the gentle way only a child could be. Isaiah crossed the room and crouched beside him. "Mrs. Alvarez needed it tonight. But you said we were getting cocoa." "We still might." "That means no." Isaiah's mouth softened, but he did not make a promise he could not keep. "It means I will figure it out." Claire watched from the kitchen doorway, still wrapped in the blue rocket blanket, suddenly unable to stand inside the kindness she had just witnessed. In her world, generosity came with plaques, press releases, rooms full of people clapping at the proper time. Here, it came out of a man's pocket in the rain, while his own son lost something small enough for adults to dismiss and large enough for a child to remember. She turned away before either of them could see too much on her face. Eli's room was dim when she stepped inside, the glow-in-the-dark stars fading above the twin bed. Her phone trembled in her hand again. 11 missed calls. Daniel. Paige Ellis. 2 board members. One message from Daniel sat at the top, clean and poisonous. "You're making everyone question your stability." Claire stared at the word stability until the room blurred at the edges. Her father had used that word the year she took over Kensington Lane. Stability was what investors wanted. Stability was what women like her were expected to perform. Never too frightened, never too angry, never too honest in public. She had learned to be elegant while cornered, calm while dismissed, beautiful while exhausted. Daniel had only turned that training into a lock. Another message appeared from Paige. "Claire, legal is asking whether Daniel has authority to delay the morning vote. Did you sign anything last night?" Claire's thumb hovered over the screen. The memory came back in pieces. Marble counter. Daniel's hand over her phone. A folder open beneath warm penthouse light. His voice low, reasonable, almost kind. "Just sign the emergency authorization, and we can stop this before the board panics." She pressed the phone dark before the whole memory could form. On Eli's dresser, beside a plastic model rocket, lay the Kensington Operations Review she had noticed earlier, folded beneath a library book. She should not have touched it. She knew that, but the title pulled at her like a loose thread. Isaiah Brooks had written in neat, technical language about faulty tower ventilation, wasted energy costs, emergency lock failures on executive floors. Claire's breath stopped on the last phrase. Emergency lock failures. Her eyes moved to the date. 3 weeks before Daniel locked her in. Behind her, Isaiah's voice drifted softly from the living room, steadying Eli back towards sleep. Not explaining himself, not defending his goodness, just being a father. Claire folded the paper exactly as she had found it, but her hands were no longer steady. When she stepped back into the hallway, Eli was awake again, watching her with solemn curiosity. "Miss Claire," he asked quietly, "did the bad door happen at your building too?" Eli's question made the hallway feel smaller. Claire stood with the folded Operations Review hidden against her side, the blue rocket blanket slipping from one shoulder. And for a moment, she looked less like the woman whose name sat on hotel signs across the city and more like someone caught between truth and pride. Isaiah turned from the couch slowly. He did not scold his son for asking. He did not rescue Claire from the silence either. He simply waited because children deserved honest rooms too. Claire looked at Eli, then down at the blanket he had given her. "Something like that," she said softly. Eli frowned with the careful seriousness of a boy trying to understand adult fear. "Dad says doors are supposed to keep bad things out, not good people in." Isaiah lowered his eyes for half a second, like hearing his own lesson come back through his son made it heavier. Claire's fingers tightened around the folded paper. She had spent years believing doors meant privacy, wealth control, penthouse doors, boardroom doors, executive doors that opened when she arrived and closed when she wanted the world kept at a distance. But in Isaiah's apartment, a child had just explained safety better than any consultant she had ever paid. Eli reached for the rocket drawing on the coffee table, the one with crooked fins and blue marker flames. "My project is about pressure," he said, still half asleep but suddenly proud. "Dad helped me make the launch tube because the first one got stuck." Claire glanced at Isaiah. "He did." Isaiah gave a small shrug. "It was cardboard and tape." "It was engineering," Eli corrected. "You said if pressure has nowhere safe to go, something breaks." The words landed in Claire's chest with quiet force. Isaiah did not look at her, but she felt the sentence move through the room anyway. Pressure, locks, emergency failures. Daniel's calm voice. The folder on the marble counter. Her phone taken from her hand. Claire looked again at the Operations Review, at Isaiah's typed name, at the warning he had written weeks before anyone important had cared to read it. She wanted to ask why he had never pushed harder, why he had not demanded attention, why a man who saw the danger before everyone else was still treated like someone who only carried tools. But Eli was watching. So was Isaiah, and Claire understood, suddenly, that some questions could become insults if asked the wrong way. "Your dad notices things," she said instead. Eli nodded like that was obvious. "He notices everything, even when people think he is just fixing stuff." Isaiah's face remained calm, but the room changed around him. Not because he had proven anything, because his son had. Claire folded the paper and placed it gently back where she had found it, under the library book beside the model rocket. She did not apologize. Not yet. She only looked at Isaiah a little longer than before, with something that was not trust, but no longer simple doubt. Then her phone lit up from Eli's dresser. Paige Ellis had sent one message with a lobby camera still attached. Claire barefoot beside Isaiah's SUV, his hand near the open passenger door, the blue rocket blanket visible in the back seat. Under it, Paige had written, "Daniel is saying he has proof Isaiah took you." Claire stared at the camera still until the apartment seemed to tilt around it. The image was clean enough to be dangerous and incomplete enough to lie. Isaiah stood beside the open passenger door of his old SUV. Claire stood barefoot in the rain, wrapped in fear the photo could not explain. Behind them, the blue rocket blanket showed clearly across the back seat, small and bright under the lobby lights, like some strange piece of evidence waiting to be misunderstood. Paige's message blinked beneath the image again. Daniel is saying he has proof Isaiah took you. Isaiah read it only once from where he stood near the dresser. His face did not change much, but Claire saw the weight settle behind his eyes. A man like Isaiah knew what a partial truth could do when handed to people already eager to believe the worst. His phone buzzed almost immediately. Harlan. Then a second message from Building Operations. Effective immediately. Isaiah Brooks is barred from Kensington Tower pending review. Return badge and keys by noon. Eli looked between the adults, too young to understand corporate language, but old enough to understand when a room went cold. Dad! Isaiah slid the phone into his pocket before his son could read more. Get your shoes, champ. His voice stayed gentle. School does not pause because grown folks get confused. Claire turned toward him sharply. Confused? They are accusing you. I heard. And you're just going to take Eli to school? Isaiah reached for the lunchbox on the counter. That is what I was going to do before the world got loud. The sentence should have sounded dismissive. It did not. It sounded like discipline, like a man refusing to let other people's false story become the center of his son's morning. Claire looked back at her phone. Paige sent another message. Daniel wants a written statement before the board call. He says if you do not confirm Isaiah acted without permission, he will release the footage internally. Claire's thumb hovered above the screen. One sentence from her could slow the damage. One careless sentence could bury him deeper. Her whole life had trained her to contain scandal before truth had time to breathe. Isaiah watched her without asking for help. That restraint unsettled her more than a plea would have. I need the full camera feed, she typed to Paige. Then she stopped. Added all angles. Not Daniel's edit. She did not send a defense. Not yet. She sent a demand for context. It was not courage, not fully, but it was the first crack in obedience. Outside the apartment, a door opened across the hall. Mrs. Alvarez's radio went silent. A neighbor's whisper drifted through the thin walls, low and curious. Claire heard Isaiah's name, then hers. Eli heard it too. He pulled his backpack higher on his shoulders and stepped closer to his father without saying anything. Isaiah noticed the movement and placed one steady hand on the boy's back. Eyes up, he murmured. We know who we are. Claire looked at the blue rocket blanket still folded over her arm, suddenly ashamed of how much protection she had borrowed from a child who now had to watch his father be judged for giving it. Her phone lit again. Paige had sent a video file this time, but before Claire could open it, the screen flashed. Attachment unavailable. Then came one final message. Someone deleted the hallway angle. The deleted hallway angle changed the air inside the apartment more than Daniel's car ever had. Claire held the phone in her hand, staring at Paige's message, while Isaiah lifted Eli's backpack from the chair and checked the zipper twice. Peanut butter sandwich. Apple slices. The note. He still folded the note and tucked it beneath the napkin, even with his badge suspended, his name under review, and a false story already moving faster than truth. Eli watched him from the doorway, the blue rocket blanket bunched under one arm because he had taken it back from Claire without asking, not out of anger, but because children reached for familiar things when grown-up fear got too loud. Dad, he asked quietly, are you in trouble because of Miss Claire? Claire looked up before Isaiah did. The question cut cleaner than accusation. Isaiah crouched in front of his son and straightened the boy's collar. I am in trouble because some people saw part of something and decided it was the whole thing. Eli thought about that, eyes serious. But you did not do anything bad. Isaiah's face softened. Then we will not act like I did. He stood, picked up the lunchbox, and opened the apartment door. Claire followed them into the hallway, still holding her phone, still wrapped in the kind of silence that came when guilt had not yet learned how to become courage. At the bottom of the stairs, Mrs. Alvarez waited near her door, pretending to sort mail she had already sorted. Two neighbors stood by the entrance longer than they needed to. Their eyes moved from Claire's expensive coat to Isaiah's old jacket, then to Eli's blanket. Nobody said anything directly. That was worse. Isaiah kept one hand lightly on Eli's shoulder and walked through the whispers without shrinking. Outside, the rain had slowed to a gray mist. Daniel's sedan was gone, but the space where it had idled still felt occupied. Isaiah opened the back door for Eli and buckled him in. Claire stood beside the SUV, phone trembling again as Paige called. This time she answered. Paige's voice came through sharp and low. Claire, the board is asking for a statement. Daniel's team says Isaiah exploited your condition. Harlan wants him to sign a conduct report by noon, or they will mark it refusal to cooperate. Claire looked at Isaiah. He heard enough. His eyes did not ask her to save him. Somehow that made it harder to breathe. Send me the report, she said. When it arrived, the language was clean, corporate, and cruel. Employee initiated unauthorized contact. Employee transported executive without verified consent. Employee may have compromised company reputation. At the bottom was a place for Isaiah's signature and one sentence already prepared for him. I acknowledge my actions caused distress to Miss Kensington and Kensington Lane hotels. Claire's throat tightened. Do not sign this, she said. Isaiah glanced at the screen, then at the clock on his dashboard. Eli needs to be at school in 12 minutes. Isaiah, I heard you. His voice stayed calm, but tiredness sat beneath it. At the school drop-off, the sidewalk was crowded with parents, backpacks, umbrellas, little shoes splashing through puddles. Eli climbed out with a rocket blanket still in his hands. Isaiah reached for it gently. Blanket stays in the car, champ. Ili hesitative. What if you need it? Isaiah smiled faintly. I'm grown. I can be cold for a while. Claire turned away at that, but not before he saw her eyes change. Then Harlan called again. Isaiah answered beside the school fence while children ran past them. Brooks, Harlan snapped. You have until noon. Isaiah looked at Eli, who was walking backward toward the entrance, watching his father instead of where he was going. Then Isaiah looked at Claire, barefoot memory still hanging between them, and the unsigned report glowing on her phone. I will bring the badge, he said, but I will not sign a lie to keep a job. Eli stopped at the school door. Claire stopped breathing. Harlan went silent for one hard second. Isaiah ended the call, opened the glove compartment, and placed his badge beside the bent keycard Claire had left in his SUV without realizing it. On the back of that keycard, under the scratched words, "Do not leave," Claire now saw a tiny smear of black grease from Isaiah's hand, crossing the Kensington logo like a fingerprint someone had not yet thought to erase. Claire sat in the passenger seat after Eli disappeared through the school doors, staring at the bent keycard in the glove compartment like it had started speaking in a language she should have understood sooner. Isaiah's badge lay beside it, dull under the gray morning light, his name printed plainly beneath the company logo that was now preparing to throw him away. The black grease across the Kensington mark looked accidental, ordinary, a working man's fingerprint. But beneath it, the scratched words still showed through. Do not leave. Claire picked up the key card slowly. Isaiah noticed, but did not stop her. He only closed the glove compartment halfway and leaned back in the driver's seat, eyes on the school entrance where Eli had vanished with his backpack and too many questions for one morning. Claire opened her phone with hands that felt steadier than she was. Paige had sent 3 files while they were driving. The first was Isaiah's operations review. The second was a security access log from the executive floors. The third was an email chain with half the names blacked out. Claire tapped the review first. Emergency lock failures on executive floors. Possible remote override delay. Manual release requires inspection. Submitted by Isaiah Brooks. Her chest tightened as she read the date again. 3 weeks before Daniel had stood between her and the elevator with her phone in his pocket. You warned them, she said quietly. Isaiah did not look over. I wrote what I saw. Why did no one tell me? You would have to ask the people who get paid to read things before they become problems. There was no accusation in his voice. That made it worse. Claire opened the email chain. The original review had been forwarded from operations to Harlan, then to someone in executive risk, then to Daniel Mercer's office. Not to Claire. Her throat went dry. The subject line had been changed from lock failure review to staff overreach concern. She looked at Isaiah, expecting anger, expecting some flash of indication. He gave her neither. Did you know Daniel saw this? She asked. Isaiah's hand rested on the steering wheel, thumb near a crack in the leather. I knew somebody did. My access got limited 2 days later. And you never said anything? To who? He turned toward her then, calm but tired in a way that stripped the question bare. Miss Kensington, men like me learn early that being right does not matter much until somebody important is ready to hear it. Claire looked down. The words did not shame her loudly. They did it quietly, which was worse. Her phone buzzed again. Paige, I found a request to delete the hallway angle. It came from an executive admin credential, but the approval note is missing. Claire tapped the attachment, but it would not open. File corrupted. Across the street, Isaiah's phone rang. Harlan again. Isaiah answered on speaker without thinking. Harlan's voice filled the SUV, clipped and cold. Brooks, do not bother bringing only the badge. Legal has upgraded this. Miss Kensington's statement is pending, and until then, we are treating last night as possible coercion. Claire froze. Isaiah closed his eyes for half a second, then opened them again. My son is in that school, he said softly. Choose your words carefully. Harlan hung up. A second later, Paige sent one final message. Claire, Daniel is telling the board you are too unstable to confirm consent. Claire read Paige's message twice, and for one terrible second, she did exactly what Daniel had trained her to do. She froze, not because she believed him, not because she doubted Isaiah, because every system around her had been built to punish a woman the moment someone powerful called her unstable, and Daniel knew exactly where to place the knife without raising his voice. Isaiah watched the silence settle over her face. He did not accuse her of it. That was worse. He only reached for his badge in the glove compartment, picked it up beside the bent keycard, and slipped both into the pocket of his worn jacket. I need to return this before noon. Claire turned sharply. No, wait until I get the full file. They already decided what they want to see. Then let me stop it. Isaiah looked toward the school doors, where Eli's classroom window showed a row of paper rockets taped to the glass. You do what you need to do. I need to keep my boy's father from looking like he ran. The words were quiet, but they left no room for rescue disguised as control. Claire followed him back toward Kensington Tower because she could not sit still while his life was being folded into a report. The ride was almost silent. His badge rested in his palm. Her phone burned with messages. Paige calling. Board members demanding. Daniel's name appearing without Daniel's voice, as if influence no longer needed a body. At the tower, the same private entrance gleamed under morning light. This time, no rain softened it. Harlan stood inside the lobby with 2 security guards and a woman from legal holding a tablet against her chest. People pretended not to stare. They stared anyway. Isaiah walked in first. Claire came behind him, still in the black coat, still carrying Eli's blue rocket blanket folded over one arm, because she had not realized she was holding it until the lobby lights made it look painfully out of place. Harlan's eyes moved to the blanket, then to Isaiah, and his mouth tightened with the satisfaction of a man watching his assumptions dress themselves as evidence. Badge and keys, he said. Isaiah placed them on the counter. No Islam, no speech, just metal touching stone. The sound was small enough to disappear and heavy enough to hurt. The legal woman turned the tablet toward him. Sign here acknowledging temporary removal pending investigation. Isaiah read the first line, then the second, then the sentence that said he had caused emotional distress to Claire Kensington through unauthorized contact. Claire stepped forward. That wording is not accurate. Harlan looked at her with careful concern, the kind Daniel had taught rooms to use against her. Miss Kensington, until your condition last night is fully reviewed, legal advises we proceed cautiously. The word condition moved through the lobby like perfume overwrought. Claire felt every eye shift toward her. Her throat closed around the truth for half a second too long. Half a second was all Harlan needed. Mr. Brooks, he said, sign or leave without cooperation noted. Isaiah picked up the pen. Claire's heart dropped, but he did not sign. He set it back down, perfectly straight. I will leave, he said, but I will not teach my son that peace is worth a lie. No one answered, not even Claire. Security stepped closer. Isaiah turned and walked out through the lobby he had repaired for years, past polished floors that remembered his hands better than the people did. Claire followed to the doors, but but her phone rang before she could speak. The school. Eli had heard another child say his father took a rich lady and would never get his job back. He had pushed the boy's lunch tray away and refused to apologize. Claire looked through the glass at Isaiah, standing alone beside the curb, his shoulders still straight, his whole life shrinking because she had waited too long to say one clear sentence. Then Paige's name flashed across the screen. Claire answered with no breath left. "I found a deleted hallway angle," Paige whispered. It was archived under emergency lock logs. The video loaded slowly. The first frame showed Daniel Mercer outside the penthouse door, holding Claire's phone in one hand and her signed authorization folder in the other. The video finished loading while Isaiah stood outside Kensington Tower with his badge surrendered and his name already damaged. Claire stared at the first frame and felt the lobby tilt beneath her memory. Daniel stood outside the penthouse door at 12:18 a.m., holding her phone in one hand and the emergency authorization folder in the other. The hallway camera had no audio, but it did not need any. It showed Claire reaching for the elevator. It showed Daniel stepping in front of her. It showed his hand closing around the door panel. It showed the lock light turning red from inside his remote access app. Then the footage shifted. 3 minutes later, Isaiah's old operations review appeared on a security terminal behind Daniel's assistant. The warning about executive lock failures highlighted in yellow before the file was moved into a restricted folder. Claire did not cry. Something steadier happened instead. She walked back into the lobby with Eli's blue rocket blanket folded over one arm, the child-sized fabric looking painfully out of place beneath marble lights and corporate glass. Harlan lifted a hand, already preparing the careful voice people used when they wanted a woman to doubt her own anger. "Miss Kensington, legal advises, call the boardroom," Claire said. Her voice was quiet. That made people listen faster. 10 minutes later, the executive conference room, filled with people who had spent the morning discussing Isaiah Brooks without inviting him to be a person. Daniel sat near the head of the table, composed and concerned. Harlan stood by the wall. Paige connected her laptop to the main screen, pale but ready. Isaiah had not wanted to come inside. Claire found him near the lobby doors, one hand on the strap of his worn jacket. "Your name is in that room," she said. He looked at her, tired but unbroken. "My name was mine before they misused it." Still, he followed at a distance. No one spoke when he entered. Claire placed the blue rocket blanket on the table beside the unsigned conduct report. "This was in his car," she said. The edited footage turned it into suspicion. In reality, it belonged to his son. Paige played the lobby still first. Isaiah by the SUV door, Claire barefoot in the rain. Then the full clip. Isaiah stood several feet away, giving her space. Claire stepped into the vehicle by choice. The blanket was already folded in the back seat. No grabbing, no coercion. Only a man opening a door and waiting. The room went still. Claire did not let silence save anyone. Now the hallway angle. The penthouse hallway filled the screen. Daniel with her phone. Daniel blocking the elevator. Daniel triggering the lock. Daniel carrying the authorization folder away while Claire backed from the door like someone trying not to break in public. Daniel's face changed before he could stop it. Claire turned to Harlan. "Isaiah Brooks warned this company about remote lock failures 3 weeks ago." Paige opened the email chain. The review was rerouted through Daniel's office and buried as staff overreach. Daniel leaned forward. "Claire, this is being misrepresented." Isaiah's voice came from near the wall, low and even. "Then let it be represented fully." Claire picked up the unsigned report and tore it once cleanly. "Isaiah Brooks did not distress me," she said. "He answered when I asked for help. His suspension is reversed. His file is cleared. His lost pay is restored. And the board will receive the full security packet before anyone speaks about his conduct again." Daniel pushed back from the table. "You are choosing a maintenance worker over your own company." Claire looked at Isaiah, then at the blue blanket. "No, I am choosing the truth before this company forgets what it is supposed to protect." Isaiah did not smile. He only folded the blanket carefully, corner to corner, like something sacred had been dragged through the wrong room and still deserved to go home clean. Claire stepped toward him with his badge in her hand. He accepted it, but not the apology waiting behind her eyes. Not yet. His phone buzzed before either of them could say more. A message from Eli's school appeared on the screen. Eli is asking if his dad told the truth. Isaiah read the message from Eli's school with the blue rocket blanket folded under one arm and his badge heavy in his hand. Around him, the boardroom had begun to fracture into controlled voices, legal concerns, Daniel's clipped denials, Harlan's careful silence, and Paige's trembling relief. None of it mattered more than the boy asking whether his father had told the truth. Isaiah looked once at Claire. Not for permission, not for rescue, just to let her see where his first responsibility had always lived. I need to get my son. Claire nodded, but this time she did not step ahead of him or try to turn his life into a problem she could solve by force. May I come? She asked quietly. The question itself told him something had changed. Isaiah studied her for a second, then looked down at the blanket she had carried through the wrong room like evidence and shame and shelter all at once. You can ride, he said, but he answers for himself. They drove to the school in a silence softer than the one that had carried them through the rain hours earlier. Morning had thinned into pale sunlight. The city looked ordinary again, almost careless, as if it had not just watched a man's name nearly break under a lie. Claire sat with both hands folded around the bent keycard, the words "do not leave" still visible beneath Isaiah's grease mark. She no longer held it like proof of her fear. She held it like proof that fear had not been the whole story. At the school office, Eli sat in a plastic chair with his backpack between his knees and his lunchbox untouched beside him. His eyes found Isaiah first. The question in them was older than 8. Isaiah crouched in front of him, careful with his work-worn knees on the polished floor. I told the truth, he said. And you did not get fired? Eli vispirith. Isaiah glanced at his badge, then set it gently in Eli's palm. They gave this back. Eli held it like a medal, then looked past his father at Claire, standing near the office door with a rocket blanket folded against her chest. For the first time, she seemed unsure where a powerful woman was supposed to put her hands. The principal started to explain policies, incidents, parent concerns, but Claire stepped forward only after Isaiah gave the smallest nod. Your father helped me when I asked, she said to Eli, voice steady but low. Some adults saw a picture and told the wrong story. I helped show them the full one. Eli watched her carefully. So he did not take you. Claire's face changed, not with tears, but with the quiet weight of having to answer a child more honestly than she had answered grown men. No, she said. He gave me a choice when someone else took mine. The office went still. Isaiah lowered his eyes, not embarrassed, just private. Eli looked at the blue blanket. That is mine. Claire walked over and offered it back with both hands. I know. Eli took it, rubbing the repaired corner between his fingers. It works better when people are scared. It did, Claire said. She did not add more. She had learned, at last, that not every feeling deserved a speech. That afternoon, Isaiah still made Eli finish school. He still went home to the small apartment above the closed laundromat. He still checked the overdue electric bill, washed the breakfast dishes, and reheated spaghetti because real life did not become glamorous just because truth finally walked into a boardroom. Claire did not send a check. She sent a written correction to every person who had received the accusation. She restored Isaiah's lost pay. She ordered a full inspection of every executive floor lock and attached his original review at the top, with his name left exactly where he had placed it. Then, just before sunset, she came by the apartment without security, without Daniel, without a driver waiting to make her look important. Mrs. Alvarez saw her from the hallway and raised one eyebrow. Claire carried a small paper bag from the corner store. Milk. Cocoa. Nothing extravagant. She held it out to Isaiah carefully, not as charity, not as payment, but as something borrowed from a promise his son had almost lost because of her storm. Isaiah looked at the bag, then at her. You asked before stepping into people's lives, he said quietly. Claire nodded. I'm learning. Eli appeared behind him with a rocket blanket around his shoulders like a cape. Dad, can she stay for Coco? Isaiah did not answer right away. Claire did not push. The old heater rattled. The hallway light flickered. Somewhere outside, a car passed over wet pavement, and the city kept moving. Finally, Isaiah stepped aside just enough for the warmth of the apartment to reach the hallway. "There is room at the table," he said. Claire entered slowly, as if trust were not a door to rush through, but a threshold to respect. And Isaiah Brooks, who had never raised his voice to prove his worth, poured cocoa into 3 chipped mugs while his son laughed softly beside him. And a woman who once lived behind locked doors learned that kindness did not need marble floors, witnesses, or applause. Sometimes it was just a tired father keeping a light on, a child handing over a blanket, in a quiet room where fear finally had nowhere left to sit.